Flowers while you're living, flowers while you're living, flowers while you're living, flowers while you're living, living flowers while you're living, flowers while you're living, flowers while you're living, living. You don't need to wait till you're underground. You need to receive them here and now. Flowers while you're living, flowers while you're living. Hello and welcome to Flowers While You're Living. I'm your host, Cheryl Thomas, and today we have a very special guest. It's Deacon Harold Smith of the Greater St. John Missionary Baptist Church, where Reverend Lloyd D. Hayes is the pastor. Welcome, Harold. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Okay. I've been knowing you forever. And there's a lot I didn't know about you, but your story is interesting. So where were you born?
I was born in North Little Rock, Arkansas.
Okay.
Out on Crystal Hill Road.
Was it a dirt road or in the country?
Of course it was a dirt road.
Oh,
it was in the country.
It was in the country, okay.
And then we moved in town at North Little Rock, Arkansas, in the Military Heights.
Okay. So now, where did you attend school?
I attended school at the Scipio A. Jones High School in North Little Rock, which was an all-black school.
Okay, all-black school, okay. How far was it from where you lived that you had to go to school?
Approximately 9 to 10 miles.
9 to 10 miles. That's a long trip. So you had to get started early.
Well, we either had to catch the bus or start walking early, ride your bike or you skate down there. I skated there many days.
Oh, okay. And what was your major in high school?
Well, we really didn't have a major. We had all academic studies that we had to take, which was English, arithmetic, math, physical education.
Okay, so just the regular basics.
Just regular basic education.
All right. So now when you finished with high school and then you went to college, what college did you go to?
I went to Arkansas AM&N College. Which stands for Agricultural, Mechanical, and Normal College.
Okay, that's a mouthful. Okay, so what did you major in there?
There I majored in industrial arts and mechanical drawing.
Okay.
I already knew about brickwork. Now that's what I taught when I was there.
Okay.
It's masonry and mechanical drawing.
Okay, masonry and mechanical drawing. Okay. So now, did you ever leave Arkansas? You just stayed there until when?
After I graduated, I went back in town in North Little Rock. The college was located at Pine Bluff, Arkansas. That's where the AM&N College was located, and still is.
Okay.
But now, it's called the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. If you ever look at television and see sports and things, they'll say University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. That's AM&N College.
Okay. So, and then like you say, you taught masonry
and mechanical
drawing and stuff there. Okay, so were there any blacks there, a lot of blacks?
All blacks.
Okay.
Now, we did have some white students there. As a matter of fact, on our football team, Barry Swissler, the coach that was at Oklahoma, his son was the quarterback there years after I had graduated.
Okay. So now you live with your parents where?
Yes, I lived with them till I really got out of college. I married a girl named Janice Walton. That was my wife, first wife.
Okay.
And we had one child, Sarita Simmons. That's my daughter.
Okay.
And of course, she had children.
Okay.
Jerron Simmons was the oldest, and then Cameron Simmons
Okay.
was our second child. That's how it was 2 boys.
Oh, okay.
Jerron was a star basketball player at Alta High School. As a matter of fact, he set records there with most points scored when he was there.
Okay.
He also was the first first starter at Alta, he was a freshman.
Okay.
And of course they had newspaper clippings. He was pretty good. And then he graduated from Alta.
Okay.
And then he had a scholarship down at Houston, University of Houston, Texas.
Okay.
Stayed there a year, and it wasn't what he thought it was going to be, so he transferred back to Ohio U here in Dayton.
Okay. So now when you was still at home, before you got married, you was telling me that 2 brothers.
Oh, yeah. My uncle and my father married 2 sisters, my mother and my aunt. And we all lived in the same house. We was all raised up together. It was like I had
2 mothers.
2 mothers and 2 fathers.
Okay.
And whatever one said, that's what went. There wasn't no dodging around it, because it was all on one accord. And that was simple as that.
Okay. You abide by the rules of the household.
Of the house, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. And of course, I know you are God-fearing family. You went to church.
Yeah, we went to church. Also, we all went to the same church. We used to go to church in North Little Rock, which was First Baptist in North Little Rock, 26th Street. And that was in Military Heights. Then my father and my uncle, they decided to go to church in Little Rock, which was Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church.
Okay.
The pastor was Dr. Fred T. Guy. And his granddaughter is named Jasmine Guy, the girl the actress.
Oh, okay.
That's his granddaughter.
Oh, wow. Small world.
Small world.
Okay.
And his son, her father, named Fred
Guy. Okay.
And they was in Atlanta, Georgia. And that's where they lived at the time.
Okay. So that's real interesting. So now you worked during the summer
with my father and uncle.
Okay, with your father and uncle.
Yes.
Okay.
In Smith Brothers Construction Company.
Okay. So
general contractors.
they were the first 2.
One of the first licensed contractors in Arkansas.
Okay.
And they worked as a team. You know, basically, my father was the talker.
Okay.
My uncle was on the job site. And then when I graduated, I became one of the superintendents, I guess, of the job.
Okay.
And they worked out of, we did a couple of churches and schools.
So in other words, you all worked building trade,
Yes.
not heavy highway. You did
No,
building
trade.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So what type of work did you do when you was there? Like, were you a carpenter, or you did everything?
Well, we did just about everything.
Okay.
Now we were my major when I went to AM&N was carpentry. My dad and uncle was bricklayers. And then they got over into general contracting really, from scratch. You know, they built everything starting from up. Now we hired licensed plumbers, licensed electricians, carpenters. They did their own brickwork and stuff. That was their major.
So were most
job.
of these contractors, were they minorities?
Yes.
Okay.
Now we did work for others, which were some whites, but basically we did a lot of black churches and houses for black
families and
families.
stuff.
Mhm.
Okay.
Now And in Arkansas, they had a union. You had a bricklayers union, and we had our union card as a youngster. Before I got out of school, I had an improver's union card, which meant I didn't have to pay the full dues while we wasn't working, while we was in school.
Okay.
We just had to pay half of the dues. But in Arkansas, they didn't allow the journeymans to get the international journeyman bricklaying card,
Okay.
which meant you could work anywhere in the world with that card. They couldn't deny you. But the only thing about that is that they wasn't giving the blacks in Arkansas those cards. My father had to get some guys together that was qualified and take them to a all-black city in Mississippi called Mount Bow, Mississippi.
Okay.
They had a union there. He would take men over there and get them licensed to work wherever they presented that card. They had to hire them. They couldn't deny them.
Okay.
So he did that. That was for his time. I mean, he worked all the angles to help us as blacks.
Okay. He was a smart man.
Yes. And so we went from there on and did it. Now after I graduated, I came home back to North Little Rock and worked with my brother, he had a subcontracting job from my father.
Okay.
He was a brick mason. And we worked together for a couple of years. And then work got a little slack in Arkansas. I went to St. Louis, Missouri. And that's where my daughter was born,
Okay.
in St. Louis.
So you was married at this time?
Yeah, I was married.
Okay.
Yeah, I got married my last year in college.
Okay.
Yes, sure did.
Okay.
And I started teaching down at Even in 1964. And after that, then my wife graduated, and she was teaching down in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, at a high school.
Okay.
Then we came back to North Little Rock, and then we went over left North Little Rock after things got slack with work. We went to St. Louis, Missouri, and worked as a brick mason.
Okay.
I stayed there until after my daughter was born, and by the time she got to be about a year old, we left St. Louis and came back to North Little Rock.
Okay. All right. Okay. So now you was also known as one of the North Little Rock, Arkansas Six.
Yes.
Okay. Now, we're going to take a look at this historical story.
Arkansas Black History. The North Little Rock Six of Scipio A. Jones High School, class of 1958. The Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka U.S. Supreme Court case of 1954 ruled that racial segregation of children in public schools was unconstitutional, even when equal in quality. As a result, all public schools were to be integrated beginning in September 1957, starting with high schools. The judgment increased the flames of racism across the South. A wave of desegregation and segregation rebellion began as city, state, and school officials were required to implement the change. Several rebellions were documented and publicized for the world to reference for years to come. However, countless rebellions were not, leaving many brave black students' stories untold and under-recognized. Among those stories are those of Eugene Hall, Frank Henderson, William Henderson, Richard Lindsay, Gerald Persons, and Harold Smith. The North Little Rock Six. The school board. North Little Rock school officials of 1954 did not want to change the status quo. Many justified their reasoning with statements such as, black schools were just as nice as white schools. Black teachers had more master's degrees than the white teachers, and the black facilities were newer and or newly renovated, so desegregating would offer no advantages. However, their opinions never publicly challenged the Supreme Court's ruling, and they still prepared to adhere to racial change. Governor Orville Faubus' halt to the integration, plus the segregationist uproar, gave North Little Rock a welcomed excuse to stall the integration process of their schools. The board remained still, not moving on desegregation according to Arkansas law. They saw the Brown versus Education case decision as a statement of principle rather than a mandate, since Faubus halted it, which warranted them no need for immediate action, so they made none. Black delegation. A black delegation developed itself as a result of the board's stagnation. It was comprised of 50 working class folk, 31 of which were women. Its notion was that North Little Rock did not need to wait to see what other communities in the state would do, and they petitioned the board to desegregate sooner than later. The board's attorney and municipal judge, Milton McLeese, agreed with the delegation's notion, stating that the board's decision to wait was premature and unwise. Nevertheless, he told the delegation that the board would comply in a spirit of cooperation, but not until suggestions for implementing the Supreme Court's decision reach North Little Rock from national and state levels. This response came after the Northside NAACP chapter petitioned for a hearing to discuss desegregation. To counter McLee's disposition, a board member discredited the delegation's relevance in contrast to their petition. It was a general opinion that the delegation was not a representative group of our educational and civic-minded Negro people. However, it included laborers of the Missouri Pacific Railroad, MOPAC, one primary source of employment in North Little Rock, custodial workers, domestics, and beauticians that lived close to North Little Rock High and were married. And although NAACP-affiliated attorneys Wiley Branton and George Howard Jr. of Pine Bluff, and Thaddeus Williams and Jackie Shropshire of Little Rock were a part of the delegation, it absorbed its gall from its local African Methodist Episcopal AME church more than anywhere else, and that was enough. Prompt and reasonable. By the end of the 1955 school year, no black enrollment applications were submitted, and desegregating North Little Rock schools had still not started. The board was in no rush, taking full advantage of the natural division between residential areas of the races. Superintendent C.S. Blackburn stated, "In North Little Rock, no school is to permit the attendance of a student who does not live in its attendance zone, and no Negro lives in the attendance zone of a white school." Aware of many school boards' manipulative measures, the U.S. Supreme Court mandated schools to make a prompt and reasonable start towards desegregation. The board held one special meeting with local black educators and NAACP representatives to address the problems with integration and discuss whether to begin with seniors or first graders, refraining from the NAACP's request to the desegregation process immediately and comprehensively. By the end of the meeting, the board unanimously reached an agreement. During a news conference, the board revealed its final integration plan for 1957. Integration would be based on residential zoning, would apply only to 12th graders, would not extend downwards at the rate of 1 grade a year without a review of its first year of implementation, and would allow a student to transfer to a school where their race was in the majority. It requested the plans be received, if not with favor, with forbearance, tolerance, and understanding. Many segregationists began to organize, convene, and publicly campaign against integration. However, the next couple of years went off without significant occurrence. As September 1957 approached, the board did not see integration creating a violent issue as it had for Little Rock Central High School. Only about 28 black students were even eligible to move to North Little Rock High, and it was assumed that only a few of those 28 would leave their familiarities. So the board did not prepare for any form of occurrence, even after Mayor Almond C. Perry suggested that the National Guard be present. North Little Rock police officers were expected to be on the campus, but only to avert potential violence, not to prevent black students from entering. The sixth, the board prepared to execute the plan beginning the second week of September, but it was abruptly stopped when Governor Faubus placed the National Guard around Little Rock Central High School on September 2nd, 1957. Without waiting to see the outcomes of Little Rock's events, the North Little Rock School Board publicly decided that due to the uncertainty and confusion which now surrounds any plan the board may attempt to implement at the present time, they were pausing integration indefinitely or until it could be managed orderly and peaceably. Black students intending to enroll at North Little Rock High were to report to Scipio A. Jones High, North Little Rock's black high school. The board assumed that the decision to postpone, plus the events in Little Rock, were enough to persuade black students to wait out the results of the matter and refrain from integrating at that time. But members of the black North Little Rock community saw no reason not to, just because Governor Faubus halted the Little Rock students. With only the support of their parents and accompanied by 4 AME ministers, the 6 young black men walked up the steps of North Little Rock High School unprotected on September 9, 1957, the first day of school. Their names are Eugene Hall, Frank Henderson, William Henderson, unrelated, Richard Lindsay, Gerald Persons, and Harold Smith. The ministers with them were Daniel J. Webster, Fred D. Gibson, John H. Gibson, Walter B. Banks, and 2 white clerics who chose not to identify themselves. The young men walked approximately 8 blocks to the high school and were met by 10 angry white students at the steps, with around 200 onlooking segregationists name-calling in proximity. The young men continued to walk towards the front door, shoved away twice by adults and students once they got there. The recently elected superintendent, Frederick Bruce Wright, and Principal George Miller came out to redirect the energy and intervene, asking the boys to come in to talk. Unfortunately, they never made it inside the building because the crowd blocked the entrance and refused to move. The superintendent, too, became entangled in the crowd and unable to get back into the school. There were no physical injuries or altercations. However, 2 young white men were detained by North Little Rock police long enough to cool off. The 6 were instructed to meet Superintendent Wright at the school administration building at 28th and Poplar Streets for their conference. During the meeting, Superintendent Wright advised the 6 to enroll in Scipio Jones High School because he didn't think integration would work at that time. The 6 complied, and the board unanimously decided days later to avoid race mixing indefinitely. The village. The school board and school administrators were surprised to discover that neither the National NAACP, a local chapter of it, nor Daisy Bates had any part in the 6's decision. Instead, North Little Rock's first metaphorical and literal steps toward educational equality were sponsored by a delegation of local working-class black people, their children, and local AME clergy. Inclusive to this were teachers at Scipio A. Jones High School, the 6's original school, who were prepared to help with tutoring if needed. North Little Rock's black community gained much of its tenacity from the local AME church rather than national organizations and public figures. No one had instigated or egged on the young men to register or attempt to enter North Little Rock High School. They simply did what their elders told them to do. However, they understood its importance: equal opportunity. Wow, there was nothing heroic about what we did. We did what we were told because we were kids, and it was 1957, said Richard Lindsay. Gerald Persons told an Arkansas Democrat Gazette reporter 50 years later, I knew what we would be facing, but we couldn't say we couldn't go if we didn't try. Harold Smith said it was an effort on our part to integrate, even though we had no court order in North Little Rock. In a sense, we were hopeful we could go, but if not, we understood the situation, and if it didn't transpire, we would keep trying. The 4 black AME ministers that escorted the 6 to the school were prepared to take a public stand against segregation and were supported by their bishop, Odie Sherman, instrumental in inspiring the 6 to make their bold move. Minister W.B. Banks was the father of a 7th registrant who happened to be working when the other 6 made history. He stated years later, we felt like since they were our children and it was worth the effort to integrate, we would give them our moral support. John Gibson felt they, the 6, did not represent any group and that no group inspired them to escort. I just thought it was time for the ministers to give leadership to the people. Another minister, D.J. Webster, told the press, just for the record, the NAACP gave absolutely no instructions to us or the students. This move was ours alone. Our responsibility is more than just preaching on Sundays. There were no Uncle Toms. Shortly after the occurrence, Reverend Banks called the Sixes Act a local matter in response to a reporter's question as to whether their legal actions will include outside interest. He said that the ministers and the parents of the students would be filing a lawsuit in the federal district court to force integration, but a suit was never filed. Without the financial means and legal resources of organizations like the NAACP, it was difficult for the black working class community to secure their own successes in the 1950s. Underwriting a case against the North Little Rock School Board for not integrating in September 1957 was one of those instances. End results. Within a couple of days after the occurrence, the Sixes integration attempt became a significantly symbolic gesture of equality for the city instead of reality. The 6 did not attempt to integrate North Little Rock High School again, but instead returned to Scipio A. Jones High School by September 23rd, where they all graduated in 1958. 5 black students tried to register for North Little Rock classes in 1963, but the board denied their applications. It did not integrate its schools until 1964, and alternatively beginning with 1st and 2nd graders instead of the 12th as it originally arranged. 8 black 1st and 2nd graders desegregated Clendenin and Riverside Elementary Schools on September 3, 1964. 20 black students entered North Little Rock High School on September 6, 1966, with 5 of them graduating in 1967, becoming the school's first black graduating students. They are Tyra Abernathy, Barnett, Jordan, Arlene Settles, Larry E. Smith, and Rosalind Sykes. Complete integration did not happen until 1972 when school busing was introduced to the city. Recognition. On September 9, 2007, the Stand Foundation and the City of North Little Rock hosted a ceremony to honor the 6 men on the 50th anniversary of their attempt to integrate North Little Rock High School. During the celebration, the 3 walked up the front steps of North Little Rock High School and through the front door. Recognition became more regular after this. Richard Lindsay stated that former President Bill Clinton honored them and that he was given a plaque from state legislatures celebrating their bravery. The Arkansas legislature also passed a resolution honoring the courage and the dignity of the North Little Rock 6 and their families on February 11, 2019. There is also a sign erected at Military Heights Park of North Little Rock honoring the 6 young men. Prior to this, The 6 young men did not receive much recognition for their efforts that day because the world was watching Little Rock Central High School. It was over for the next 50 years as far as North Little Rock is concerned. Central took over, and North Little Rock never existed. It never came up, and not that much written or spoken about it. The newspaper did their daily thing. We were considered not important for 50 years, said Richard Lindsay. The New York Times did, however, feature a front-page photograph of Gerald Persons and Harold Smith. The picture captured a white youth with a cigarette planted in his mouth, positioned to push Smith and Persons away from the school's entrance. Unfortunately, the photo is misidentified as an occurrence at Little Rock Central High School. Today, there are 3 surviving North Little Rock 6, and of those 3, Richard Lindsay of the Lindsay barbecue family is the only one that resides in North Little Rock.
Wow. That's something.
It is.
And this story is a part of history that should have been told a long time ago. We know about the Little Rock 9, but they never said anything about the North Little Rock, Arkansas 6. And to me, that's just as important, you know, because it wasn't where you were trying to make history. Why were, what was the purpose of it?
Well, we would know that we wasn't being treated equally.
Okay.
As a child growing up, we knew the difference. But we treated people like we wanted to be treated. And that was do unto others, have them do unto you.
Okay.
We had no problem with that. I mean, we learned that in church, in our Sunday school and BTU classes.
Okay.
And that happened. But back before that, I mean, that wasn't the end of the story. In 1957, when we didn't get a chance to go to North Little Rock High, Dr. Fred was a pastor in Alabama. Got his church exploded up. His home was set fire.
Okay, the
and he was
explosion
in
where they
it, yeah.
had the 4 little black kids that got killed?
Yes, in
Okay.
Alabama. But Fred Shuttlesworth, which was a pastor back then of that church, he and I and a few others, I can't remember the name of them, but we were asked to fly to San Francisco, California for a fundraiser. I was one of the students to go. Elizabeth Eckford in Little Rock, her parents wouldn't let her go. But I went. That's the first time ever flying in a plane. And by myself too, at 17. But I was with some people that I felt secure with. And that's why my father let me go. And we went. And it was a total experience, altogether different there than it was in Little Rock or North Little Rock.
Okay. And another problem that you all had was you lived right here, and the school that you was wanting to go to was right here.
That's right.
And then the school that you had to go to was like 10 miles away.
10 miles away. North Little Rock High. North Little Rock High is at 100 West 22nd Street. My father's address and home where we stayed was 415 West 22nd Street. That's 3 blocks away.
Okay.
On the same street. But that was us in Military Heights. We stayed almost in the front door and couldn't go. When we went to school, we walked past that school, caught the bus or walked or got a ride to Scipio A. Jones High School.
Wow.
That was one of the reasons why we wanted to desegregate the school. And it would have saved me. I could get there in 5 minutes.
See, yeah. And I don't know what the weather is like in Arkansas, if you got winter weather like we have in Dayton, but you know, like, do you have snow? But then
we have snow.
Okay, then you got to try to make it to school
In
snow.
inclement weather.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. And it was rough, but we did what we had to do.
Okay.
Now my cousin Larry E. Smith was one of the ones to graduate from North Little Rock High in 1966. He was like about 12 years under
Younger
me.
than- okay. Well then, how did you feel when you all went up to the school to try to get in, you know, the front door and everything, which you wasn't able to get in there? How did you all, I know you had to be scared, and I know you all prayed on it before you started.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Well, we had the support of our parents. My father was one of the first black school board, and he's also one of the first blacks on the selective service board
Okay.
as a parent and a contractor in Arkansas. It was just time. It was just time for a change,
Okay, I understand.
and we felt like that now is the time.
But now when you said time for a change and you had all of those white people around you and everything, and I know you had to be nervous.
Well, a little nervous.
Yeah, because I know they were throwing out
we were there
racial
to expect it.
slurs.
Oh yeah. But you look over that. Talk don't hurt,
Right,
but putting your hands on somebody is a different story.
right. And thank God that, you know, that didn't happen, you know, because looking at this story here, you all look calm. And, you know, it wasn't rowdy, even though the people outside was, you know, badgering you all and things like that.
That's correct. But I mean, we just had made up in our hearts and our mind that we're gonna do what needs to be done.
Okay.
And we tried, but we didn't succeed at that time. But eventually, after the years passed, they were able to go. I had sisters and cousins that graduated from there. I also had cousins and sisters and relatives that teach there.
Okay.
One have retired from there. So, and they still in North Little Rock.
Okay.
Because when I go home, that's who I reside with.
Right. Okay.
She was just like my sister.
Okay.
Although she was a daughter of my uncle. See, in our family, we had 2 brothers married 2 sisters.
Right.
And it was just like whichever one spoke and gave a reason to do something, you did it without questioning.
Right. So now, let me ask you this. After all of this had happened, you were grown and you went back down there to receive whatever awards they were giving you or accolades, or how did that go?
Well, the first time that we went back was in 2007.
Wait a minute, before you go any further, did they notify you and say,
Yes,
hey,
they
we want
called.
you to come?
They called and had a place set up for us at the hotel at the Wyndham in North Little Rock, and they had a banquet and just a beautiful celebration when we went back. Now that was in 2007. That was 50 years later. Which was the first time I had set foot in that school.
Wow.
Now I also did take my grandkids down there and show them where they refused to let us go. They took pictures on the steps and things with that.
Okay.
And they understood what was going on because I told them.
Right.
And so they appreciate it. And right now, they look up to me for that.
And that's a good thing. That's a beautiful thing, you know, that you took them so that they can learn some history.
Absolutely.
You know, and there's always history around us about something. But this here should have been, like I say, it should have been in schools. You telling your grandkids and your kids about this, and hopefully somebody will watch this show and tell their kids, and even for them to know, because I didn't know nothing about the North Little Rock 6. You know, I knew the Little Rock 9, but I didn't know nothing about,
Yeah, because that was the publicity
Right.
of North Little Rock 9. They had a court order from President Eisenhower to send that 101 airborne service people to see that the school was open and the kids would get in and would not be hurt. And they did a good job.
Yes, they did.
So they there. Now, one of the students that graduated, the first student to graduate from that was Ernest Green. He was in my Sunday school class. We went to the same church in Little Rock, Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church. And that's where we went to church. And
Right.
he went also. But he was the first black to graduate from there.
Okay. So now, Little Rock, Arkansas is, and I use my hands, is right here. How far was North Little Rock, Arkansas? Was it?
Right across the river.
Oh, wow.
Arkansas River was there.
Okay.
And Little Rock was on the south side of it, and we were on the north side of the river.
Wow.
So that's why it was called North Little Rock.
So they were able to see what was going on with North Little Rock, Arkansas, and then they attempted to do it as well.
Well, no, they had a court order to do it. We didn't. But my father thought it was best we tried to go as seniors.
Okay.
The first year, and we would all graduate, because all of us had the grade point average to graduate from North Little Rock, in spite of what transpired.
Okay.
And so, but it didn't happen that way. So we went to Jones High School that senior year in 1958, and we graduated.
Okay. So you had, I'm pretty sure you had white friends.
Oh yeah.
You know, so how did some of them feel about you all trying to go to their school?
They didn't feel any different. I mean, those was friends.
Okay.
And we played ball with them every weekend over there in Wildcat Field.
Wow.
Which was North Little Rock High School, marquee, or the Wildcats.
Okay.
I was in Jones, down there, Scipio A. Jones was the Dragons. But that was all separate.
Okay.
Now, thank God, it's all together.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I went back to receive a plaque that you saw in 2016,
Okay.
2216. And I went. I was the only one that was able to go.
Okay.
The one Jerry Person, I think he had a hip replacement or something, and Richard was not feeling well.
Okay.
He's the one that still stay in North Little Rock, Lindsay's Barbecue.
Right. And this was in 2016?
No, 2022.
Oh, 2022.
And I received a plaque for that. And they did too, but they wasn't in attendance.
Okay.
I was the only one in attendance of that.
Okay. All right. So did they do anything else? They put a little article in the newspaper, I guess, when
I went to, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it was a couple of black state representatives there.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, one of them was Lindsay's niece, I believe it was. She's a representative.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And so everything is going according to plan. I mean, it takes time to do things.
That's true.
You can't rush it.
That's true.
And so we waited our time. Now, like I say, in 2007, the first time I'd ever set foot in North Little Rock High School.
Wow.
That was 50 years later.
No difference. It had rooms, had windows, had doors.
Same
the
school.
Same
the only
stuff.
thing they've enlarged it.
Okay.
It looked like a little college campus, to tell you the truth.
Oh, okay.
But it's still North Little Rock.
Right, right.
And it's still located in the same place. Now it's gotten some more space and stuff. Tore some houses down and built some more buildings up there, new gymnasium.
Okay, just to make it
It's
bigger, right?
yeah.
Right. Okay, okay. Wow. I mean, this is this is really something, you know. And like I say, if you want to know a little more about the North Little Rock, Arkansas 6, just Google it. That's what I did. Just Google it, and you can see the different things that are going on that had went on back in, you know, those days and stuff. And it is a part of history, and everybody needs to know history.
That's correct.
You know. So
Now my pastor, we had a convention down in Memphis, Tennessee, and they went in that museum and thing down there in Memphis, Tennessee. My picture and other pictures of North Little Rock 6 is going around on that.
okay.
Singer
Okay.
in
So they
Memphis.
have a museum in Memphis.
Yeah, they got a
And
museum.
that's-
That's where Dr. King got killed. you know.
Right. Okay.
And so all this is in there. So some of the deacons and my pastor that was in there said, "Oh, that's Harold Smith."
Okay.
The same pictures that they saw in the
Right.
newspaper.
Right.
You could see it.
So have you
down
been there to see it?
No, I haven't been there to see it.
Okay, I bet that would
No.
be interesting.
It is, but I've had some other family members that stopped in Memphis that went
Okay.
there and spent the night.
Right.
When I go through Memphis, it's just like going home through. When I get Memphis, I'm almost at home in North Little Rock.
Okay.
About
Okay.
another 130 miles
Wow.
here at home.
Well, we talked about that. We talked about your time when you were younger in school and going to Scipio
Scipio A. Jones High School.
High School and everything. So when you came to Dayton, and I know you were working construction
Yes.
at that time.
Yes. When I came to Dayton because my cousin, which was just like a brother of mine, we stayed in the same house. He had worked up in Baltimore, Maryland as a bricklayer, and they were building the Grandeur Towers down on 5th Street in Dayton. And he had worked for that company in Maryland. And so he said, well, we can get a job up there. And in 1968, September the 30th, that's when the first time I came to Ohio. And I went to work as a brick mason there. And so I was one of the first black foremen in Dayton
Okay.
to be the foreman in the job. In the union, I had my union card.
Okay.
So they hired us. And one cousin worked with this company he worked for in Baltimore, Maryland. And then my other cousin, which is Jimmy Smith, we went to work for another company here in Dayton.
Okay.
And that's history.
Okay. Okay. And during this time, you ended up going to, we're going to jump to this, Greater St. John Missionary Baptist Church.
Yes.
And it's a nice church. I've been in there before.
It's very, very nice.
And you are a deacon.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm a ministry leader
Okay.
of the deacons at Greater St. John Missionary Baptist Church.
Okay. That's good. That is good. And hopefully you'll continue on being a deacon there.
Well, I'm a deacon there because I'm emeritus now.
Okay.
So, so another ministry leader has taken over. But I'm 83 years old now.
Wow.
So it takes a little bit more out of you now to participate
Exactly.
in everything that you
Exactly.
do there.
Because usually when I talk to you on the phone and I'll say, hey, Harold, how you doing? You say, God, let me see another day, and everything. And that's beautiful. And just think that you went from all of the things you went through, Arkansas,
From the North
and
Little Rock
everything.
6
yeah,
until
to coming
up
here.
to now.
Yes, yes. And you're more laid back. You're not a violent, wild person or anything like
never have
that.
been, never will be.
Right, right. 'Cause
I got more trust in God now than I ever had.
Yes, yes. Okay. So is there anything else you want to bring up? It doesn't matter. Nothing? Okay. I want to
well-
make sure we touch bases on the Little Rock 6 if we missed anything, or because all of this is important.
No, what we do at the North Little Rock 6 is they had a banquet for us, and Lindsay's Barbecue furnish the
Oh,
food for 'em.
okay, okay. So one of the 6 furnished the
Yes.
barbecue.
Yes.
Okay, well that's great. Okay.
And now at that barbecue business, it's as many whites go there as it is black.
Okay. Must be some good barbecue.
It is good,
Okay.
and things has changed. People know that things had to change. I mean,
Right.
especially if you're a Christian.
Exactly.
Our problem now in this country is that we don't have Christians standing up for what God says.
Say
is right.
that. Say that.
Because there's no way you can get things passed, laws passed, and different. When you know it's wrong, it's against what the Scripture says.
Right.
The Scripture says, "Do unto others, you have them do unto you."
Exactly.
Judge ye not, unless you be judged by the same measure. And if you think about that, you can't keep doing what you're doing when you know it's wrong.
Right.
Because you got to give an account for that when you meet
You sure do. When
the
meet
Father
your
in
Maker.
heaven.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, well, Harold, that's all the time we have. And I want to thank you for being on my show.
Well, thank you for inviting us.
And my show is called Flowers While You're Living for a reason.
That's wonderful.
I want people to receive their flowers
While they're yet
while
live.
they're here.
That's right.
And what I want to do is I want to give you these flowers.
Thank you.
And that's just a little appreciation, you know, for the things that, you know, you have done, things like that.
And hopefully things we continue to do.
Exactly, exactly. But like I say, that's all the time we have. I want to leave you with one thing. Don't pray on the problem, pray on the solution. Thank you. Flowers while you're living, flowers while you're living, flowers while you're living, living. Flowers while you're living, flowers while you're living, flowers while you're living, flowers while